Let's say good morning to CNN legal analyst Shan Wu. Shan, to you, Attorney General Barr had to know that within hours of his news conference on Thursday, that the omissions would be analyzed and the spin would be obvious. A few days out now from the immediacy of the release, do you see a strategy beyond the initial reaction to, this is just to an audience of one? Is there some greater strategy at play here for the AG?
The only greater strategy is that it was very important to Barr to reach out unnecessarily, may I add, to decide the obstruction issue. Mueller clearly left that open from a prosecutorial decision standpoint. Very clear why he left it open. He says that the OLC regulation, the Office of Legal Counsel policy that says don't indict a sitting president, was a controlling factor for him. And in addition to that, he points out that this is properly something which Congress can exercise its prosecutorial discretion over. And he does a very beautiful job, starting about page 159, really dissecting and analyzing all the arguments why Trump's people argued you cannot bring obstruction against the President of the United States, and he completely disposes of those arguments. So he clears the stage for Congress to take care of it, and also in the footnote notes that after President leaves office, he can be indicted, and they have preserved the record to make that a possibility.
You bring up serving this up to Congress, and there's been criticism on this network and others of AG Barr's statements during the news conference, also his letters. But I want to examine his truthfulness under oath when he was before Congress last week. And let me read from the Mueller report first. This is volume 2, page 8. In which Mueller writes, with respect to whether the president can be found to have obstructed justice by exercising his powers under Article 2 of the Constitution, we concluded that Congress has authority to prohibit a president's corrupt use of his authority in order to protect the integrity of the administration of justice. On the same page, the conclusion that Congress may apply the obstruction laws to the president's corrupt exercise of the powers of the office accords with our constitutional systems of checks and balances and the principle that no person is above the law. Now watch this exchange between AG Barr and Senator Leahy. This was April 10th. The Attorney General had the report for 2.5 weeks by the time he answered this question. Watch.
Did he express any expectation or interest in leaving the obstruction decision to Congress?
Not that he didn't say that to me, no.
How does that qualify as a truthful answer?
Well, that was quite a long pause as he parsed his words there. I think if I were his lawyer, I'd say that what Barr was, quote, saying, quote, not that he said to me, meaning not in the private conversation we had. He clearly said that in the report, and I think that's part of that pause, is Barr's trying to make sure he does not commit perjury before Congress by saying Mueller said nothing of the kind in the report. He says, didn't say that to me. And I think that that's very misleading. It's very, very troubling. And this whole pattern of Barr's deliberately misleading the public is really unconscionable. I mean, he took an oath to serve the people, to serve the Constitution. The president appoints him to serve the Constitution. He serves at the pleasure of the president, not to pleasure the president.
So let me ask you about the subpoena that's been issued now, House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler for the full report, unredacted, and the underlying evidence there. Does the spin from the AG and the omissions in public, does that play into the legal fight to come to try to get the full report?
I think it does. Perhaps it doesn't play into it in terms of legally, does it make it a stronger case or not, but it certainly provides a strong impetus for Congress to want to see the rest of it, particularly the underlying detail, no matter how voluminous it is, because they don't trust Barr anymore. Now, traditionally, the department and Congress engage in a lot of negotiation over just how much will be revealed, and if that goes as it usually does, they're not going to end up with all whatever million-plus pages of it. But I think the fact that Barr has basically misled them and misled the public means they don't really have any choice. To do their job, they've got to ask for as much detail as possible.
So a spokesperson for the Department of Justice has responded to the subpoena, calling it premature and unnecessary. Does approving the subpoena before getting the unredacted or getting the redacted report, and then issuing the subpoena before getting this less redacted report undermine the argument that Nadler and Democrats at large are trying to make about getting the full report?
I don't think so, because when they approve the subpoena, and even if they do issue that subpoena, once you issue the subpoena, it can be negotiated. And that happens all the time, not just with congressional subpoenas. When you get a subpoena in a civil case, once you receive it, you immediately reach out to the other side and start negotiating over the scope of it. Can the documents be delivered in a rolling fashion without a witness appearing? So that's a very normal thing. It doesn't really undercut the legal strength whether or not they can get the documents or not.
Okay. Shan Wu, good to have you.
Good to see you.